You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
All writers are prone to becoming so attached to our characters and stories that we struggle to see why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing to full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, shaping stories into masterpieces that can stand the test of time. Editing services are provided for all genres and all age categories. Services range from critiques of the short story through to the line edits of the full-length novel and copy editing for those preparing for publication. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your website, as well as help with those book blurbs and promotional material. We won't abandon you to the masses. We want to celebrate with you in your successes. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services and prices, visit us at blackwolfeditorial.com.
Individuals and businesses with tax problems, listen carefully. Do you feel like you're losing control over your finances? If you owe over $10,000 in back taxes or have unfiled tax returns, we can help you take back control. The IRS is the largest and most aggressive collection agency in the world, and they can seize your bank account, garnish your paycheck, close your business, and file criminal charges. Take control of your tax problems now by calling the experts at Tax Mediation Services and take advantage of the Fresh Start program and new laws that may allow us to negotiate a settlement for the lowest amount possible. Our team of tax attorneys and enrolled agents can stop collections and get you protected so you can take control of your financial future. Tax Mediation Services is accredited by the Better Business Bureau. Call now for a free case review and a price protection guaranteed quote.
Call Tax Mediation Services now at 800-610-9050. That's 800-610-9050. 800-610-9050.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
This is Slickery Trigger for Rebel Road Tactical. With proper care and feeding, your pistol will be ready when you need it, there to save your life. Shouldn't your gear be that good? Whether you need a holster for comfortable everyday carry or a tough-as-nails holster for your next training course, Rebel Road Tactical has what you need. Check us out on the web at rebelroadtactical.com.
Tired of paying outrageous prices for Viagra? Well, we have great news for you. Now you can finally get Viagra at huge discounts. Healthy Man allows you to save up to $500 on Viagra. Why pay U.S. pharmacy prices of $15 per pill or more when you can get Viagra for less than $3 a pill? Call today and get 40 Viagra pills for only $99. This can cost as much as $600 at your local pharmacy. You can't afford not to call us. If you want Viagra at the lowest prices, never pay $15 a pill pharmacy prices again. Get Viagra for less than $3 a pill. Call 1-800-516-7602 today and save up to $500 and get 40 pills for just $99. Healthy Man is fast, easy, and affordable. Operators are waiting at 1-800-516-7602 to take your call right now. Call 1-800-516-7602. That's 1-800-516-7602. Again, 1-800-516-7602.
The following message contains a special offer for listeners of this station. Are you a man over 40? Are you constantly looking for the nearest bathroom? Do you wake up multiple times a night to use the bathroom? Right now, Perfect Prostate is sending out free bottles of their groundbreaking new formula to listeners of this station. Perfect Prostate Formula was developed by medical doctor Mitchell Fleischer, and its ingredients have been clinically studied to reduce your frequent nighttime bathroom visits and promote healthy urine flow. Right now, preferred customers get their first bottle of Perfect Prostate absolutely free. There's nothing to lose. Perfect Prostate is guaranteed to reduce that constant urge to use the bathroom, especially at night, and promote healthy urine flow. Don't wait. Call now for your free bottle. Just pay shipping and processing. Dial 1-800-675-0251. That's 1-800-675-0251. Supplies are limited. One free bottle per household. Call now. Dial 1-800-675-0251. That's 1-800-675-0251.
Hey folks, I want to introduce you to a friend of mine, Dr. Richard Harden. We are on the same mission, which is waking up America. We just have different paths. So stay tuned for some information on how you can keep up with Richard and all his work.
Visit Richard's website at raharden.com. That's the World Wide Web at RAHARDIN.com. At his website, you can see a summary of the 6 books he has written, where purchases may be made. He also has a link to 18 videos on YouTube and several blogs about Christian beliefs. If you prefer, visit Amazon.com/Kindle and type in Richard Harden to see and purchase his books.
Every day, the men and women of the United States Marine Corps stand ready to defend the American way of life. The few, the proud, the Marines.
This is Slickery Trigger for Rebel Road Tactical. With proper care and feeding, your pistol will be ready when you need it. There to save your life. Shouldn't your gear be that good? Whether you need a holster for comfortable everyday carry or a tough-as-nails holster for your next training course, Rebel Road Tactical has what you need. Check us out on the web at rebelroadtactical.com.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country.
Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream. The only way they can inherit the freedom we have known is if we fight for it, protect it, defend it, and then hand it to them with the well-taught lessons of how they in their lifetime must do the same.
I'm not ready to end the fight. I'm not ready to back down. 'Cause I've been through hell and I don't have time to go round and round and round. It's too late to turn back now. You know I wouldn't if I could. 'Cause I'm proud as hell, I can't bring myself to do what it is you think I should.
All right, well, good evening, folks. This is the General Nick Show. I'm one half of the crew, Mr. Big Robinson. She's the other half, Miss Jen. And actually, we are coming to you live right now on KLRNradio.com. And, well, it's been a while since we've been together. In between birthdays and weather issues and holidays, we've kind of been hit and miss lately. Going to try to get things back on track as much as we can. However, I do have an announcement. I have almost zero voice tonight, so there will not be a live America Off the Rails. As a matter of fact, this show will probably just air again, and I'll probably go ahead and send it over to a lot of the affiliates tomorrow as well, because I'm allowed to send them pretty much whatever show I want as long as it's got my name on it. They don't care. But anyway, so how was your birthday? Because we took Thursday off, I believe, because it was your birthday.
Yes, it was pretty good, you know. I mean, went to dinner with the spouse and the kiddo and celebrated sort of this weekend, I guess. I went to my parents' house and my dad cooked and hung out with some of my family and, you know, just trying not to feel too old, which I don't get to say to almost anybody that's friends with me on Twitter.
So how does it feel to be legally old enough to drink now?
I can't remember who it was. I think it was Hammy or something that was like, she's finally 21. Everybody can hit on her. And I was like, no, thanks though.
Oh, whatever. You're young at heart. That's all that counts.
So, yeah.
So have you been keeping up with anything in the news? Been taking a break?
Oh, no. I have managed to somehow make Monday and Tuesday like super intensive Twitter days. I don't know how this was managed, but me and several other people have somehow engaged, and it's not been liberal trolls. We've been engaged with people on the right, and not only people on the right, people that were never Trump like us, because we're just not never Trump enough. We cannot meet up to their standards, which I guess apparently now means applaud everything leftists do or just ignore it, and you can't criticize them, and you can't push back against anything they put out because Trump administration. I mean, that's basically what we're getting here now. So I'm not only finding myself, have I had, obviously the split with people that went really pro-Trump and then were never Trump, but now I'm finding it within the people that were never Trump. And it's like, for some of these people, nothing's good enough. I want to stand up to things objectively, and I want to support what's worth supporting, and I want to call out crap where I see crap, being spewed, especially by the left. And then I want to condemn things that are worth condemning. And by latching on to to this narrative of everything on the right or GOP, Trump, anything affiliated with that now is bad. And so we just have to roll over for the leftists. Otherwise, we're, not a true conservative and not a true never Trumper, makes me want to rip my hair out. I'm so sick of being scolded by the left all these years. And now I'm being scolded by the high and mighty on the right. And nothing is good enough. And I'm just I'm over it. I ended some ties with some people because of it the last couple of days. So it's been interesting. I should be fighting the left, and I should be fighting Trump, and some of the stuff that's coming out right now is what we should be worried about and focused on. And instead, we're being scolded left and right about what we're allowed to be outraged about, and what we should support that Dems say just because never Trump. And I don't buy into all that crap. So, end rant.
One of the things that I started noticing about Never Trump when I really started getting involved in it, there were two different Never Trump camps. There were the Never Trump folks on the right, and then there were the Never Trump folks on the left. I'm wondering how many of these people that have gone to the point where now they're telling you, hey, you can't really criticize anything on the left now because look who's going to be president. I'm wondering how many of them kind of dipped their toe in the conservative pool and then decided they didn't like it, so now they're scurrying back over to the left. Not so sure. What I do know is people that are doing what you and I are doing are actually the rational ones. There's an entire group of people that I know that are basically in wait-and-see mode. What we're doing is we're like, hey, we're going to give this guy, as scary as some of the things that are coming out are, the benefit of the doubt, at least until such time as he gets sworn in and actually starts trying to see whether he's going to be able to accomplish anything that he's telling anybody he's going to be doing that excludes some of his Twitter ranting meltdowns. But the thing about that is that's a rational decision. We did the same thing in 2008 with Barack Obama because we didn't want him to be president, but he still was president. So we put on our big boy pants, or in your case, big girl pants, and we got behind one another and said, okay, well, we're Americans first, so let's see what this guy's going to do. And sadly, within about 2 months, we realized that nothing that he said when he campaigned was what he was actually going to do, other than the one thing that he kept saying over and over again that nobody really paid any attention to till it was too late, because he kept saying he was going to fundamentally transform America, and he said that multiple times. And that was one of the things that scared me during his campaign, was because I kept saying, hey, he's using some really, really descriptive words here, and nobody's paying attention to it. I submit to you, especially after listening to about 20 minutes of his 51-minute speech, because I have to admit I missed the first half, but who can sit through him for 51 minutes? Sue me, I'm a talk show host. I'm not immortal. It would have killed me. But anyway, so that being said, all I heard for most of the part that I heard was how great things were under him and how it was because of the American people that supported him and how they don't need to give up on their dream of being able to change things, even though he's no longer going to be president, because change comes through them, not him. Actually, most of his change came through a pen and a phone, so I'm not sure what he was trying to put everything back on the American people for, because most everything that he did was done by executive order. And then the same guy that did most of his work by executive order is now lovingly talking about things like the Constitution. You know, that little thing that he kept saying over and over again was outdated and no longer really necessary while he was president. Now that he's about to take his sunset walk off stage, he's like, oh, focus on the Constitution. It's great. Our founding fathers are brilliant. So confused.
Yeah. I mean, there was also just a lot of contradiction and just a lot of like kind of flawed arguments and things that he was saying here. It was a lot of talking points, and he was ticking things off a sheet, and a lot of it's just the same old rhetoric that we hear from the left all the time. He spoke as well as he always does. He's engaging and he's charismatic and yada yada yada. But on one hand, he's talking about how we can't let racial strife and all of these things, how we're moving past that and we need to keep moving past that. And it's not worse than it was before. But then on the other hand, he sat there and called out identity politics. And then on the other hand, he invoked them not even 5 minutes later. So, it's just, this is such a fluff kind of speech thing. It's just tradition. And it used to bear weight back when they were setting precedents by even leaving office to begin with, and not seeking lifelong terms as president. So that it bore a lot of weight then. I'm just not sure that it makes much of a difference now. It's just he's sitting there, soaking up his last little bit of celebrity before he, moves out of the spotlight.
Oh, no, he's already said he's not really going to move out of the spotlight. He's actually already vocally said that he was going to remain in D.C. and remain politically active, which is a bad precedent because most other former presidents kind of go off into the sunset and let their predecessor or their successors, I always say that wrong for some reason, do their job. And he's already said that he's really not going to do that, which doesn't surprise me because the man is a narcissistic control freak. That's one of the things that has driven me crazy about the fact that we seem to be transitioning from one narcissistic control freak to the other. What's more scary about this newest control freak is he actually understands the power that he's going to have access to. And he's proven that because he's already been using it in some positive and negative ways, even though he hasn't even been sworn in yet. He's actually accomplished more as a president-elect than in job creation and other things based on just what he's telling people and the people that he's meeting with. He's done more for job creation in the few weeks that he's been president-elect than Barack Obama's done for his entire presidency, which made me really happy for about 30 seconds. And then I started looking at the crazy Twitter fits again and the fact that still people will not take his phone away from him and all of the little whispery leaks that may or may not be going on with information that the Russians may or may not have that might compromise Trump. I'm tired of dealing with all these stories that want to put out this, well, we have this from an unnamed, unconfirmed Russian source. I don't really want to hear about it until you tell me who the source is.
Well, also, and I had thought that this sounded familiar. This actually came out in October. So this isn't exactly new. And it was kind of tossed around back then and semi-investigated. And people need to understand that although this looks terrible, and there's certainly parts of it that might be true, that's where it all came from to begin with, that there hasn't been anything that's checked out. And just because you write it in a fancy way and you say source this and blah, blah, and you make it seem like it's some sort of classified document. It's not, and it was Oppo research in order to bring him down, and it's a lot of anonymous sources and unverified facts. So, you just can't really hang your hat on this, and that was one of the things I was talking about earlier, that how dare I not just jump on it one way or the other? Who knows? Someone's going to be mad at me. I'm just kind of saying, meh. I mean, it's funny. I think it's funny to make fun of. All the golden shower jokes are hilarious. But other than that, I'm not going to bite. I think that we've been fooled too many times and let down by what we have thought was intelligence of some kinds, and it's been false.
And that's all of it. And I actually talked about this a little bit on Off the Rails last night, but I'm going to go ahead and bring this up again. I guess part of what bothers me with all of this, the Russians may or may not have been involved in this, and they may have information about Trump, and they may have this, and they may have that. Well, maybe if we had a president for the last 8 years who didn't think climate change was the end-all, be-all of our existence and actually took some of our, because supposedly we are decreasing the deficit now, and we have all of this money. I'm not sure where that's coming from, but that's the rumor. So maybe we should have taken some of that money and invested it in things like cybersecurity. Maybe somebody should have had a seminar with the DNC and told them, hey, bad idea to have your email password set as password.
Yeah, and just, having people falling prey to pretty basic phishing scams. I mean, there's a difference. We've talked about this before. There's a difference between hacked and just falling prey to scam and capitalizing on available, info, being able to, when you say hacking the election, people think that like the votes were changed, and this is something different. I was going to say real quick about Obama's farewell speech that I thought was kind of funny. First of all, at the very beginning, people started chanting 4 more years, and I was rolling my eyes so hard I almost fell down. And he did say, I can't do that, but what we can do, it was stupid. And then the other thing is that he called out Twitter basically, which I thought was pretty funny. Like, I actually laughed because he was like, if you're tired of arguing with strangers on the internet, and paused.
Maybe
and
you should go talk to them in person. Yeah, I actually heard that.
And I was like, Twitter, he's talking to you. That is exactly who he's talking about.
So just a little gripe of something that I noticed during the speech as well. I don't know who was running his soundboard, but was it just me? Maybe it was just me, or maybe it was the channel that I was watching. But anytime he talked for an extended period of time, he started sounding like Lou Gehrig.
Oh, interesting.
Because it was like, I'm here to tell you today, and I'm like, really? Was that on purpose, or is whoever running your soundboard a complete moron? Because it was really annoying. I mean, can I just be honest? I've never cared for the man politically. I don't like a lot of the things that he says. I don't like his attitude when he says them. Adding an echo in makes it 1,000,000 times worse. I'm just saying.
Yeah, it definitely does. That's funny.
I mean, seriously, I was listening for like 30 seconds, and I'm like, okay, whoever is running POTUS's soundboard is making him sound like Lou Gehrig. He's annoying enough without the echo. Okay, thanks. Literally, I tweeted that like 30 seconds into turning his speech on, because I'm like, oh my God, it's terrible. It's like, and the thing about it is, I know it was something they were doing with the microphones, because when anybody else would start cheering, there was no echo. If he would get to the point where he was talking with other people with ambient noise, there was no echo. There was something they were deliberately doing there to make him sound like he had an echo. And I don't know if it was to get... I mean, it was already a fairly big room.
Weird.
It was already a fairly big room, so I don't know why they felt the need to make it sound bigger by giving him an echo, because it was annoying as hell. As somebody who spends a good portion of my day with headphones on, either working or editing sound... little annoyances like that drive me crazy, because I'm sitting here going, there has to be a way to fix this. And I'm like, well, crap, it's not my broadcast. I can't fix it, but I really wish it would stop.
Wow, that's interesting. I had not noticed.
So yeah, if you're a complete political junkie like me, you may or may not have DVR'd it. Go back and just listen to one of those 5 or 6 minute stretches that he's talking about nothing important, and you'll hear and today. Like, really, just make it stop. Please just make it stop. And it was really nothing but a fluff piece. And I guess what annoys me the most about it being a fluff piece, we spent all of this money in this huge venue to bring all of these people in to listen to him pat himself on the back for 50 minutes. Why not just do it from the Oval Office? Save people some money.
Oh, he couldn't possibly do that. He wants to be able to do what I'm seeing right now, which is like pointing at people, winking at them, giving them the looking at you, kid. You know, I mean, he needs that. He's got to do that.
Well, then, I mean, take it to the... well, no, they can't do that. That would violate all kinds of tradition. I was going to say, he could just take it to the House floor and treat it like it's a State of the Union address. I mean, it might as well be his final national State of the Union address. Yeah,
it kind of is.
It's kind of what it was.
It kind of is.
I mean, but I don't know. I mean, I heard all of these supposedly positive things, and I'm looking at all the things that has happened under this administration, and I'm like, are you really living on the same planet that I'm living on? Like, he pointed out the fact that there has been no organized, internationally or claimed like ISIS attack on this country in the last 8 years. I'm like, dude, there have been all kinds of terrorist attacks in this country.
I know. And he mentioned Orlando and things like that, but he's just not using them in the same context. Also, his anytime he was talking about the economy, I just was like gagging. Like, what are you talking about? Oh, we've got more production we've ever had. We've got this, we've got that. And then he goes into Obamacare and is just lauding it. And I'm going, oh my goodness. And the numbers just keep coming out worse and worse. And we're more insured than ever before. Healthcare is
of course
increasing at the lowest rates. And it's like, well, yeah, when you force people to buy a product or else, of course there's more insured. That is not something to pat your back over. You used government force to make that happen.
Exactly. That's what I was about to say. You can't tout numbers like, if 12 million more insured or 18 million or whatever number they're using now, and tout that as a success when you're basically pointing a gun at them and saying you buy this or else. And for those of you that don't think there's some sort of force involved here, let's not forget that while this first year penalty was absolutely nothing, I think it was like $150, $200, that penalty for each year that you continue to file your income taxes without proof of some form of insurance actually goes up exponentially each year. I think it's been a long time since I've looked at the numbers, but I think by year 4 or 5, you're talking about anywhere from a $25,000 to a $30,000 penalty. And I'm completely pulling that number out of thin air, so I'll actually look at that when we go to break. But I know that somewhere around 4 or 5 years, it actually goes up to such a number that it would. You might as well just run to Canada if you haven't gotten insurance by then. Saying.
Well, and as ever, they conflate health insurance with health care. So he even did that in his speech. So which is just a disingenuous way to represent it and to manipulate people that aren't as politically savvy and aren't as involved in what is going on. And so they hear that and they go, great, well, perfect. I mean, why would we ever want anything else?
So wait, just because you have insurance, you're not necessarily guaranteed health care? Wait, you mean there's these things called deductibles? And some of these programs have these astronomical deductibles that nobody's ever going to be able to meet. So it's basically nothing but a buffer to make sure that money is being funneled right back into Obamacare. Wait, are you telling me that's what's happening here?
Well, I'm telling you even more than that. I'm telling you that they have used fear-mongering, which they always accuse the right of, to scare people into thinking that all of these other people, they scared basically kind of the middle and upper class into thinking that anyone that did not have health insurance could not get health care. And that was a bald-faced lie. There's not a clinic or an ER in this country that turns away people that need treatment. And yes, there are bills that come in, and you know what else? A lot of them get waived, especially if you can't pay. There's payment systems that have you paying $8 a year for 80 years. I mean, that no one was denied health care. People were not sick and dying in the streets because they couldn't get because they didn't have health insurance, so they couldn't get health care. They're sick and dying in the streets because they choose to be, or because they're some sort of mentally deficient. And, I guess that's the government's fault that they're not taking care of them, which I do think that's in some, very cases of, our most vulnerable, that we should be doing something. But they just grossly over-exaggerated everything, and they put a lot of people in a very bad position that were opting out of the health insurance system for a very specific reason, mostly because they were either A, healthy, and B, they wanted to spend that money elsewhere, and now they're not free to do so. So, yay, America.
Yeah, we've gone from give us your tired, your poor, your huddled masses to give us all your money so that we can make sure everybody has health insurance.
Yep.
Woo! Sounds like a plan. And it doesn't even work. I mean, I honestly, out of everyone that I know, I think I've heard one positive story about Obamacare, and that was because somebody that I know that used to live here moved to another state that had much less or much more lax laws when it came to their medical coverages. So they were actually able to get on state assistance there, have it supplemented by the Obamacare setup, and they were able to get some of the surgeries that they really, really needed to have. So I'm not disputing the fact that this is helping some people. But my thing about all of this has been from the beginning, there was a way to do this without pointing a gun at everyone else in America and saying, if you don't have insurance, you have to get insurance. Because my wife's insurance has gone through 4 or 5 devaluations since Obamacare has been passed. The most recent thing that they did, because her union could no longer afford the astronomical cost of it, is I no longer have my secondary insurances. At my job, I have access to insurance. Through her job, I've also always had access to insurance. So even when I was self-employed and couldn't find insurance another way, I was still covered. But now that's gone. So I used to be able to go in anytime I wasn't feeling well, put down 2 insurance cards, and they're like, hey, Mr. Robinson, what tests do you want done today? Because we know you're covered. Now it's, oh, you have to pay this much out of pocket, and you're going to have to pay this before you leave. And, now your prescriptions are going to cost a little more because your plan wasn't quite as good as the other one that you were using for your prescriptions. And so, I mean, it's even impacting me because, and I'm not trying to make it sound like, I'm this big guy who, basically could go to the doctor whenever I wanted to. But it was really nice because there are times when I don't have the extra 50, 60, 75 bucks to put down a copay, even with what I make every month, because there's expenses that I have to go through. So medical coverage was never really something that I had to worry about because I had 2 forms of insurance. That's gone for me now. So now I actually have to plan it out and think, okay, so I'm going to have to get this prescription filled here in the next few weeks. So I need to make sure that I've got the time scheduled off for work to make sure I can go in there and get it done. I've got to make sure I've got X amount of dollars set aside because it's going to now cost me this much money to be able to go to the doctor in the first place. And it's just frustrating because things were working for a vast majority of us before the government got a hold of everything, and they could have fixed what was broken without breaking it for the rest of us. But the simple fact of the matter is they didn't want it fixed. They want it more broken than even it is now because this was all the first step to get us towards a single-payer system, which Obama had said behind closed doors, even though he denied it in public. That's what he wanted for America, was a single-payer system. And what's got everyone so upset that wanted this single-payer system and was using the Obamacare insurance stuff to get us to that point, now they're afraid that most of this is going to be undone. I'm here to tell you that I'm afraid most of it is not going to be undone.
Yeah, I don't see how it will be. I mean, for all the optimism about repeal, I just anytime you make a program of this magnitude, I can't even think of a time when anything's been killed.
Well, I mean, I would be a lot happier if they were still using language about repealing, but the thing about it is it stopped becoming repeal a long time ago. It started becoming repeal and replace. And Donald Trump, on pretty much every interview that he has given that anybody was willing to listen to, has said that there would be a single-payer component. Now, I know that he's talking about opening up insurances between state lines, and he wants to do this and he wants to do that, but I'm more concerned about that single-payer component. Because once something like that starts, it's only going to grow. And if we continue, it's one of those control issues. You have to decide at the end of the day, do you want the government controlling your health care or do you want to be able to control your health care? It's the same argument that a lot of us have about Social Security. At the end of the day, do you want your government controlling your retirement or do you want the ability to control your retirement? Because for those of us that want to be able to take that money that is being forced out of our paychecks and reinvest it into something else that could substantially make us a lot more money than the $255 for death benefits and maybe, if we're lucky, $755 a month for the rest of our lives. There are so many other things that we could be doing with that money, but instead we have given up the ability to make our own choices for a modicum of what we perceive to be safety when the simple truth of the matter is when Social Security was first conceived, people weren't living the amount of time that they live now. If we're going to continue to be able to have access to that money by the time I need it, we need to increase the age that it's going to be able to be used for, because I know everybody thinks it's cruel, but let's think about it for a second. We used to have the majority of the people would die 5 to 6 years before they would even get to the Social Security age. That's what the system was designed for, and that's what they were counting on, was that there were going to be less people available to use the money. Now we have people that are living to be, on average, 80, 90 years old, where they used to be lucky if they could make it to 60. That the system is not designed to sustain itself with the way that it's set up now. And we need to do something about that, as well as the medical coverages. But one of the things that we need to do is get the government out of all of it, because it doesn't make any sense. But I just realized we have blown all the way through the bottom of the hour break, so we got to pay some bills. We'll be right back. This is Jen and Rick. We'll be right back here in just a second.
You know I wouldn't if I could, 'cause I'm proud as hell. I can't bring myself to do what it is you think I should.
You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
All writers are prone to becoming so attached to our characters and stories that we struggle to see why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing to full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, shaping stories into masterpieces that can stand the test of time. Editing services are provided for all genres and all age categories. Services range from critiques of the short story through to the line edits of the full-length novel and copy editing for those preparing for publication. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your websites, as well as help with those book blurbs and promotional material. We won't abandon you to the masses. We want to celebrate with you in your successes. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services and prices, visit us at blackwolfeditorial.com.
Individuals and businesses with tax problems, listen carefully. Do you feel like you're losing control over your finances? If you owe over $10,000 in back taxes or have unfiled tax returns, we can help you take back control. The IRS is the largest and most aggressive collection agency in the world, and they can seize your bank account, garnish your paycheck, close your business, and file criminal charges. Take control of your tax problems now by calling the experts at Tax Mediation Services and take advantage of the Fresh Start program and new laws that may allow us to negotiate a settlement for the lowest amount possible. Our team of tax attorneys and enrolled agents can stop collections and get you protected so you can take control of your financial future. Tax Mediation Services is accredited by the Better Business Bureau. Call now for a free case review and a price protection guaranteed quote.
Call Tax Mediation Services now at 800-610-9050. That's 800-610-9050. 800-610-9050.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
This is Slickery Trigger for Rebel Road Tactical. With proper care and feeding, your pistol will be ready when you need it, there to save your life. Shouldn't your gear be that good? Whether you need a holster for comfortable everyday carry or a tough-as-nails holster for your next training course, Rebel Road Tactical has what you need. Check us out on the web at rebelroadtactical.com.
Tired of paying outrageous prices for Viagra? Well, we have great news for you. Now you can finally get Viagra at huge discounts. Healthy Man allows you to save up to $500 on Viagra. Why pay U.S. pharmacy prices of $15 per pill or more when you can get Viagra for less than $3 a pill? Call today and get 40 Viagra pills for only $99. This can cost as much as $600 at your local pharmacy. You can't afford not to call us. If you want Viagra at the lowest prices, never pay $15 a pill pharmacy prices again. Get Viagra for less than $3 a pill. Call 1-800-516-7602 today and save up to $500 and get 40 pills for just $99. Healthy Man is fast, easy, and affordable. Operators are waiting at 1-800-516-7602 to take your call right now. Call 1-800-516-7602. That's 1-800-516-7602. Again, 1-800-516-7602.
It's too late to turn back now. You know I wouldn't if I could. Cause I'm proud as hell. I can't bring myself to do what it is you think I should.
All right, folks, welcome back. We were a little bit late to that bottom of the hour break, so now we've got about 20-ish minutes left of the show. I've been talking a lot, so I'm going to let Miss Jen talk for a little bit. I hate it when I monopolize the show.
Oh boy, whatever should I talk about? Well, I guess we can talk a little bit about this. Kind of goes into the sort of outrage thing I was saying earlier. You know, they started the Sessions hearing, and they've been asking him all sorts of questions. But first of all, it kicked off with, unsurprisingly, a lot of unruly protesters, people yelling out things and just overall disrupting it. And, that's the thing, is it's like when you're not actually getting any sort of message across, and you're surely not affecting anything at all other than just creating a little bit of chaos and then getting arrested. It's so silly to me that they think that is something that they should do and that will in any way really change anything about what's going on. They're not going to suddenly turn on Sessions. But anyways, beyond that, I was cracking up, though. They were going after him on various issues. Of course, they tried to trap him into saying that he wouldn't uphold Roe v. Wade, and they tried to trick him into admitting he's a racist. And I just feel like with these kinds of things, they made the rules, and suddenly, in the last few years, it's like you can't oppose anybody. All you can do is just ask them legit questions, and other than that, that pertain to the appointment, and then other than that, you can't stray from there. And they didn't want their nominees to be, really grilled very hard. It was just a courtesy, hearing type thing. And now the shoe's on the other foot, and they're coming up with ridiculous questions. They're calling him a racist. They are just all of a sudden caring about upholding the law versus pushing an agenda, which is all that Holder and Lynch did, was further agendas of Obama's and of the left. And suddenly they care about, objectivity. And this is not surprising, really, but it's just so annoying.
I guess for me, the whole thing is the disingenuousness of it all, because when the shoe was on the other foot and they were the ones wanting their nominees put through because it was their president and we should be honoring his decisions, and now all of a sudden we're back to business as usual. And let's not forget, at this point, I'm just as mad with both sides, because a few short years ago it was the Republican Party saying everything the Democratic Party is saying right now. And these people aren't guaranteed to get their positions. It's just as much up to us as it is up to him. You cannot have it both ways. And I'm so tired of people talking out of both sides of their mouth depending on the situation that they're in. Because now the Republicans sound just like the Democrats did in 2008, and the Democrats sound just like the Republicans did in 2008. And I'm tired of this. I mean, it's astounding to me, because we've listened to the Republican Party for the last 8 years go on and on and on about the Constitution and how it matters and it's important, and the Democratic Party talking about how it's a living document and it's not as important as it used to be. And now that they're the opposition party, they're the ones talking about states' rights. They're the ones talking about the Constitution. I'm so tired of this just being talking points to rally people behind. This is stuff that matters.
It comes across as, and if anybody was really paying attention, and they're not, but it comes across as partisan as you can possibly be. I want things to go the right way. I want them to be done by the book. I want things to be objective and fair, and you need to hear everybody's voice, and you've got to follow the rules by the book. And also, by the way, you have to compromise, and you have to find middle ground, and you have to throw us a bone, and blah, blah, blah. Every time that I'm not in power, that's what I'm saying, and it's only for my own agenda. Now, when I am in power, I'm saying, well, you know what? It's too bad you didn't win, and so our president is going to do what our president is going to do, and you're going to like it, and you're going to confirm, and you're going to this, and you're going to that, and if you don't, we're going to call you names. We're going to call you racist and sexist and biggest. By the way, you do that anyways, so what do we really care? But that's what the Democratic Party has turned into. I don't know how long it's been that way. I know for almost all my life it seems to have been that way. But they even went so far as to change rules to benefit them when they were in power, and they don't like the way those rules work now. And the Republicans rightfully are saying, too bad, you changed them, we're keeping them. It's just so obvious that they don't really care about pretty much anything that it is they say they care about. They only care about being in power and bullying their way through when they have it, and then just completely opposing and dismantling their opposition when they don't.
I mean, I really don't have anything to add there because, again, that's just been one of the things that's been driving me crazy about watching this transition, because we are watching the Republicans start talking to the Democrats just like the Democrats used to talk to the Republicans. Now we're watching the Democrats react just like the Republicans were reacting, and we were outraged when the Democrats were doing it to us, but now we're doing the same thing. And I get it. These people are, in some cases, ideologically much different than we are. But at the end of the day, aren't we still supposed to be Americans first? Can we quit with the posturing and the bickering and actually find a way to make things work? Look, I get it at this point. Obamacare, at least as far as it stands now, is probably never officially going away. But we can find a way to fix it to the point where it actually doesn't cause everyday people to stop being able to go to the doctor while they have a worthless insurance card in their pocket. We could find ways to make sure that we have proper medical care and psychological care for people that are obviously having issues, like this guy that just shot up a baggage claim in Florida, who managed to legally take a firearm in there, and because of the fact that the baggage claim isn't really considered a secure area, there was not really any security around to do anything about it. The guy took a gun out of a checked bag, took it into a bathroom, loaded it up, and started indiscriminately firing at people. This is the same guy who tried to turn himself into the FBI and told them that he was hearing voices and he felt like the federal government was forcing him to watch propaganda for ISIS. And yet he somehow managed to make it through a 72-hour evaluation. There are things in this country that need to be addressed, and I will be the first one to tell you that. But we cannot continue to address them with a one-size-fits-all, the government can fix everything solution. We need to start working together to figure out what can work, what can't work, so we can make it happen and move on, so that we can so I can stop turning on my news channel and hearing about another cop that was shot by some deranged person, another airport that was shot up, another person who died when they could have had preventative medical care, but because the costs were too high, there was nothing that could be done about it. These are the things that we need to address. And the easiest way to address them is not to turn over full control of the government. There is a way to get this done without relinquishing our freedom. And if we continue to give the government more and more control over our lives, that is exactly what we're going to be doing. And it's why I've never been a fan of the single-payer system. We need to do some of the things that the politicians have been talking about for a long time. There needs to stop being this idea that you can only get medical insurance from the state that you live in. Car insurance doesn't work that way. Why does medical insurance have to work that way? If I can find medical insurance for pennies on the dollar for what I'm paying in Oklahoma out of California, why am I not eligible to get that California insurance? There are ways to fix this without making it the government's problem. And we keep making everything the government's problem. And all they ever do, they don't fix things. All they do is make them worse. Look what they've done to education. We've had this grand plan now for decades to make this national education plan to make sure the kids don't get left behind, or whatever crazy name they're calling it now, and they're left behind more now than ever.
Well, I think, but that has been the goal, right? Is for more dependence than they can expand. I think the real problem lies a little bit less with everybody loves to blame our elected officials, and I understand why. But when you talk about growing the government, and when you talk about how big it already is and the ways in which it is controlling so much of our life, the people that are really making so many of these decisions, we did not vote for. They are bureaucrats that are appointed. They are unelected, and they are the ones that are unfortunately really at the reins here in a lot of ways for a lot of things that are happening in this country. And we spend a lot of time quibbling over term limits, and we're not talking about having to actually go through better vetting processes, or even maybe limiting employment in certain departments for how long you can work there, or ways in which that you have to be hired instead of just someone picking their guy. That's a that's a bigger issue. And once we do, even when they shift something from one part of the government to another, they cut parts of this program, or they do this and they do that. Like, they don't really cut people out, though. They just shuffle them around, or they just make too many people doing the same job. And this is all part of what is just bloating us to death. It's a major factor that people just don't really talk about, because I think a lot of people don't know much about it, but they do know that they can bitch about this one congressman and what he said on TV.
Well, that's because we have a bunch of low information, short attention span people, so they hear one or two sound bites and those things stick with them forever. I mean,
well, and I think that that's also another, point in which the media has just really failed. I mean, they've become an entertainment. The mainstream media has become a clickbait soundbite entertainment media instead of actually objective journalism and doing what they should to hold our elected officials and our government as a whole accountable.
I couldn't agree more. One of the biggest mistakes that I think we made is when we started making media for profit. Now, by media, I'm talking about actual newspapers and other places that actually tell you that they report news. I'm not necessarily talking about those of us that do a lot of opinion spewing. Not that we see a lot of money doing this, but there are several people that have been able to do that. I don't necessarily have a problem with the folks that tell you up front, hey, I'm not a news guy per se. I may technically be considered part of the media for events, but I'm not a newspaper guy. I don't live my life, eat and breathe facts. I basically take a news story and give you my opinion on it. I don't have an issue with those type of people finding ways to make money to the point where it can be considered entertainment, because that's ultimately what it is. You don't turn on Rush Limbaugh to get the best news. You turn on Rush Limbaugh to get a fired up guy yelling about the news, because maybe that's what you like to hear.
Yeah, I mean, I think people listen to that kind of stuff to stay informed as far as like current events, like what is happening today that people are talking about, and then they're getting a specific take on it that they want to hear. But and so I think that it does help to a certain extent, more so than people that just never look or listen to anything. But, there's the downside of if you're only getting the one thing. But I was going to say also, but the media has positioned it this way. They've constantly used celebrities and things to drive ratings. Look at how they push Donald Trump. I mean, that's just the most basic example. But even think about like how they will over and over and over, they will televise some celebrity stumping on climate change or rock the vote, and what they mean is rock the Democratic vote, and fight for 15 or something like that, and his speech, and they will treat it, and they will talk about it so unobjectively. They will treat it as if it was from a well-learned economics professor, and then they will completely ignore this profound government waste speech that Rand Paul does on the Senate floor. So that they're part of the problem, and it all is cyclical. It just all feeds each other, and I don't know that's never going to stop, unfortunately. What does stink is that also you've got the education system that, instead of being able to counteract this, they're also feeding right into it, and they are indoctrinating and sucking this up just as much, and putting it to the young minds. So that's unfortunate. So you got to battle it at home, I guess. I mean, that's really the only answer. You have to encourage people to read and expand beyond what Hannity's saying or what Rachel Maddow's saying, and to think critically. We just don't think critically and analytically enough anymore. And I don't know why everything became about perception and feelings and relevancy and all of, well, it's, that's relative to how you think, and that's relative to your experience. No, that we are not teaching people to use their brains in a way that they can discern, what is this hashtag fake news? We're just a bunch of suckers. We have several generations of just gullible suckers now. And that's sad.
Well, I mean, to be fair, these are the same people that are saying, a baby's not a baby when it's still in the womb because of science, but gender is fluid because it doesn't matter what equipment you may or may not have between your legs. Go with the bathroom you want to use, yo.
Yeah, there's just, I'm serious. It's logic and analysis that have just, inability to critical think is just failing us massively, and it's not just millennials. I know people love to say that, but it's not. It is Gen Xers too. I mean, I can't tell you how many younger-ish professors, middle-aged professors that I had that promoted it only in the way that suited what they wanted you to be thinking.
You know, it's interesting because I was actually talking to Michael Loftus a little bit on Sunday, and he was talking about how he normally gets his news, which is kind of the same approach that I use, or I used to use, to like really couldn't stomach Fox News very much anymore. He actually gets his news from either MSNBC or Fox News, and he'll actually change between the two, which is kind of an ingenious idea because you're getting the extremes of both, and it gives you the ability to kind of find the middle ground and figure out where the truth actually is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of the things that I used to do. It actually drives my wife crazy because I'll be watching one news channel, and then that'll be over, so I'll change to another one, and then I'll change to the other one, and she's like, "You're watching the same story 3 times on 3 different channels." I said, "Yeah, but that's because each view is slightly different. And by the time you put together each view, you kind of have the ability to kind of pick out the stuff in the middle and go, okay, this is probably where the truth is." Which is one of the things they teach you in critical thinking when you're trying to map things out. Get things from multiple perspectives. Go to multiple sources. Don't just take it in one place. Because what's going to wind up happening, no matter how much somebody tries not to, their bias is going to be in the material somewhere, no matter how objective they try to be. So if you get it from multiple sources, you're going to find the true story somewhere in the middle of everywhere that you're looking.
Well, even more than that, I think that if you want to be talking on these topics in an educated manner, I see so many people that go, no, I couldn't watch that because that person's speaking or that person's blah, blah, blah. But I bet you're going to spend 12 hours on Twitter fighting about what that person said. Like, either watch it or read the transcript, even if you don't want to know, even if it's just, it makes you nauseous. Like, if you want to be involved, if you want to be, knowledgeable about what it is you're discussing current events wise, then you've got to stay on top of it and not just pick and choose, that because it wasn't a Republican speaking, you just don't want to hear what they have to say, but then get mad at people for whatever their opinion they have come up with on it. I just feel like there's a lot of that kind of going on too. That's weird.
Well, now, to be fair, it wasn't 12 hours on Twitter. It was 9 hours, 56 minutes, and 22 seconds.
And I'm not talking about people. I'm not talking about stop your live so that you can, watch some sort of speech or whatever. But it just seems like there's a certain faction that get really heated about a lot of things. And even sometimes guests on some of these shows, and they're like, well, did you watch the confirmation hearing? No. But I saw the clip. Okay, so you just saw the clip. So whatever you saw was just a piece that could be taken out of context, manipulated by whoever it was that showed it to you. Those kinds of things are important. It's not even just like some guy on Twitter. I mean, that's happening on major news networks where they've got a guest on. So people just, either stay out of it or get with it. I don't understand.
All right, so we are about out of time. I want to do something a little bit different on the way out the door, and then, of course, we'll give out our usual social media contacts. I want to mention somebody that the station has kind of been taking an interest in, thanks to Jess. Mr. Scott Harvath, who was actually a retired NYPD sergeant. He was a 9/11 first responder. He's currently fighting stage 4 esophageal cancer and actually going through some treatments as we speak. Last I heard, he was doing fairly well, but just want to let everybody know, if you're not following along with him, I do encourage you to do that. You can do that at Scott Harvath. It's at SCOTTHARVATH. He actually has a pretty active Twitter account, so pretty great all-around guy. I've been following him now for a few weeks, been interacting a little bit with his account. Do encourage you to keep up with his story. Actually having family members that have gone through the type of cancer that he's fighting, it's encouraging to see someone else continuing the fight. I actually was lucky enough that my aunt has actually survived esophageal cancer, which is not as rare as it used to be, thanks to some of the treatments, but it's still a big deal.
Absolutely. Yeah, I recorded a little shout out for him. I'm wishing him all the best.
And I've just gotten a little update. Apparently, his whole family, including him right now, has the flu. So I hope you guys get to feeling better soon.
Oh, man.
As somebody who's been coughing, hacking, and sneezing all the way through the breaks, Jen can attest to that. I can somewhat relate, but mine I think is allergy related. That, and we're doing the whole yo-yo temperature thing, so my throat is about to kill me today. But anyway, as we're on the way out the door, as we always do, why don't you remind folks where it is that they can hang out with you when you are not on the radio hanging out with me?
Alrighty, well, come find me at J Homestead on Twitter, JR Homestead on Facebook, and misfitspolitics.com.
I like that much better than misfits.
Oh, me too.
So congratulations.
You know, we just kind of had to get it going and see what we really wanted to do and how much interest there was. And now it's going really, really well. And we're having so much fun. We do politics, culture. We even do like family budget-friendly recipes. We've got people that write about some sports stuff. We're kind of all over the board, and we're doing an advice column now that's hilarious, and an old man yells at cloud segment that's really funny too. So for kind of all around entertainment, follow us on Twitter at Misfit Politics and then misfitspolitics.com.
So you're running a hodgepodge, are you?
Yeah, pretty much. It just kind of happened. It just did. And now we're having too much fun. So it's awesome.
Awesome. All right. And I, of course, am Rick Robinson. You can follow along with me at AOTR_host. Do encourage you to do that. The phone is pretty much always in the pocket unless the wife and I are going out to dinner. So it's the easiest way to interact with me. Again, as a reminder, there will not be an America Off the Rails this evening because I don't have the voice to be able to do this on my own for an hour. So this show will repeat, and then at midnight Eastern, we will have the Rhino Report coming up right here on KLRNradio.com. I will be back with you live tomorrow night. Come hell or high water, I'm doing one tomorrow. But we're out, folks. You have a great night. Take care. God bless.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream.